Welcome to the Fantastic Story Society, a place for the most unusual stories and storytellers, including your masters of ceremony, Max Tim and Scott Marcus.
That was really fun. She's awesome.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. This is the Fantastic Story Society. Welcome to Halloween Town, maybe. Should we call it Halloween Town? It's not town, I guess. It's in the airwaves. Halloween airwaves.
It's, this is the time where the rest of the country and the rest of the world catches up to us because we've been in this state of being all year long.
Right. This is our wheelhouse, man.
Yeah, it is October. It is Halloween season officially, where you're allowed to express your love for Halloween more, even though we want to all year long.
Yeah, Scott even more so than me. I've always enjoyed Halloween, but you have always really, this was it. This is your Super Bowl.
Well, yeah, I can't remember if I've talked about this on the show or not, but I do remember. And it's weird, when you get those memories, the fact that you can remember things from kindergarten, a little bit weird that we can think back that far, but
so weird.
I remember a PTA meeting, where, maybe it was an open house kind of a thing, where the parents were coming in. And, you, as a kid, as this little kindergarten student, you had all of your artwork up all over the wall and they could walk around and see your stuff. And I can't remember exactly when this was, but maybe it was winter, maybe it was spring. But when the school season hit Halloween, I went to drawing haunted houses, and then I just never stopped. That was all I would do artwork on. And so I don't know why, but it is in the DNA or something. It is deep seated as a little kid. Yeah. Even I loved all the creepy stuff.
It's something in there that you were born that way,
I have to try to show you this, which I know is really good for podcasting. What the hell was it? So on the note of it being just deep seated, I'm hitting send on a text to Max right now. This is my little nephew yesterday waiting for his friend to come home.
Waiting for his friend. Is he holding? So everybody, he's dressed as an even scarier Jason with a hockey mask and a full-on sword. That thing looks real. But then is he holding a doll or something?
I'm not sure what's in his other hand, but it's definitely, a 4-year-old Jason with a machete waiting in the bushes.
That's right. The scenery is important to describe here. Yeah.
But we have no idea really. How does he already know Jason?
Right.
As a 3.5, 4-year-old kid. And
is your sister into this though? In terms of Halloween?
No. Oh. She likes Halloween, but she's not into slasher movies or anything like that. He's been a huge fan of Nightmare Before Christmas. He came to our Thanksgiving full Jack Skellington costume with mask on.
Maybe we need to have a sit down with this kid.
Well, you know what? But it's in the DNA,
Yeah. It is, man. It is.
So I got bad news for you, Carter. This is your future right here. Sitting here doing a podcast, a paranormal podcast with Max.
Yeah. Now there is that feeling of the holidays, and it's ironic that we start with one that scares the shit out of ourselves.
Right.
We end with a Christmas holiday that's all happy and let's love everybody. And so I guess this is a way for our souls to be cleansed.
Yeah, right.
Let's dig deep into the darkness in October. Once November comes along, okay, we'll be thankful we've got some people around. And then, the actual Christmas holiday allows us to, and if the Jewish holiday and all the other holidays at the end of the year, let's take advantage of the darkness now.
Exactly. It's getting darker out earlier. The night is growing if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. So there's something just alluring to it in general. And just seeing pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns, the changing seasons, I love it.
Chill in the air. Yeah, it's here in Wisconsin. It's going to, I think last night it got down to 39 degrees. And I was like, what the? No. Okay,
I'm not cool with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait a minute.
I'll take all the murders you want to throw at me, but keep it above freezing.
Right. Yeah. Well, we had a really fun conversation with MJ Dickson, hailing from, I almost said it, and I hate the term across the pond. I fucking hate it when people say that. And it came out of my mouth. But she is in the United Kingdom, tiny little town. It sounded a lot like the little town I'm in. Other than the sheep surrounding her, it's cornfields over here. And she talked a lot about all of her experiences as an investigator. And like you said, she's kind of the first true ghost investigator that we've had on.
I believe so. We've definitely had more skeptics than actual ghost hunters on the show.
Yeah.
It's all about storytelling for us, though, more than anything.
Yeah. So she went into some info about all of the different TV shows she's worked on. And I was fascinated. I was immediately like, hold on. I wanted to really delve in and ask, all right, how much of this is BS? And I kind of did.
Yeah.
And she gave a good answer. But what do you think of all of these ghost investigation shows?
Well, I want to tie it in as well, because she mentioned a place, and you'll hear it in my voice, my excitement, when she mentions Poveglia Island in Italy.
Yeah.
Because that was the plague island. It was the quarantine island that is just all about one of the darkest points in European history. But that was also, I think, the show that made me addicted to Ghost Adventures when they went there.
Okay.
And they caught some crazy stuff. I think it was part of not only the creepiness of what they were catching, but the adventure. I mean, the show is titled well, Ghost Adventures. The adventures of going to this island and getting to know really what went down there and being able to see this place that I'd never even heard of before, but now find fascinating.
Yeah, that's true.
For ghost hunting shows, I love them. I consider them guilty pleasures that I always say also that if you find pleasure in something, you shouldn't be guilty about it. But, it's not exactly highbrow entertainment. And I'll admit that. I don't have Discovery Plus at the moment, partly because that's my winter plans. When it's too cold to go outside, I'm just going to binge all winter long, catch up on all the ghost shows.
You got plenty to go. You've got months long.
Exactly. But I do love the Ghost Adventures, and as problematic as it can be at times, it's also so fun.
It's just fun.
I mean, you and I, Max, when we lived together in LA, we would watch that show every time it come out, a new episode comes out.
Yeah.
As much as we found things creepy, probably 2 times or 5 times more often, we're just laughing at it.
Oh, hysterical.
I really hope the hosts of the show are okay with that. that should be part of the viewing experience, the fun of it all.
They've comedied it up a little bit, and now they're going a little too far. They're trying to do little bits and stuff. I'm like, all right, guys, come on now.
Yeah, stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane. Yeah. I do want to clarify one comment I made. Like, one of my favorite shows is Destination Fear, and MJ worked on Destination Fear. I just think the folks that are doing the show are genuine, and some of the evidence they find is like legitimately, whoa, okay, that was weird. But I mentioned something, we were talking about shows, and I said I like locations that I don't necessarily know the history behind, like some house that was owned by a woman for 85 years. Let's get in there and see if it's haunted. It doesn't mean that I don't want to learn the history about it. I feel like I'm kind of affected by, I already know, like if I go to Gettysburg, I'm going to expect to see Civil War soldiers and hear cannons. And that's cool. And especially if it happens. And of course, I love the history of the Civil War, as horrific as it was. Going into a place and not having anything to know about it is just as fun and entertaining for me, I guess, is what I meant to be trying to say,
Sure. I do remember when we would watch The Haunting of that Kim Russo. She was a psychic, and that would work with people. And it kind of was building off of The Haunting of, kind of celebrity ghost story show. Yeah. We always definitely enjoyed the episodes that were much more personal, not taking place at a famously haunted location.
I think that's pretty much what I should have said. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. The personal stories where it's like there's a character connected to this, and I'm pulling for that person. There's one on the air that's been on the air for a while called The Holzer Files with Dave Schrader. Yeah. I love Dave. He's got a cheese to him though, in the way he delivers some of his dialogue. I'm like, just be real, Dave. Come on.
Yeah, but you wonder how much is directed.
Yes, I'm sure.
I don't have an answer to that. Dave is awesome. He's a great storyteller. Yeah, he has agreed multiple times to be on our show, and I've been bad at following up. So maybe we can make that happen in the next couple of weeks.
And maybe we should probably edit out what I just said about the. We love you, Dave Schrader. Come on now. No, he's big time, and he deserves it. No, it was a great conversation. I think it's probably best if we just lead you all in. Definitely pay attention to MJ's upcoming events and her website. And she even has a game that is like Cards Against Humanity, but for paranormal enthusiasts, which I'm absolutely going to buy. This is a really fun conversation. So here's our interview with MJ Dickson, and happy Halloween, everybody.
Call this meeting of the Fantastic Story Society into session, we are honored to induct a new member, a Brit by way of South Africa. She is a writer, producer, investigator, entrepreneur, organizer of her own live events, including the Sage ParaCon, which was something we really enjoyed virtually during the pandemic. And she's just an overall curator of all stories paranormal. So yes, she's the perfect person to help us kick off our 4th year of the Fantastic Story Society. She's associated with a bevy of popular paranormal investigation shows, both behind of and in front of the camera, including Destination Fear, Paranormal Lockdown, and many more. She's also the only person I've ever heard described as a skeptical psychic. So we are very much looking forward to talking about haunted sites around the globe and hearing some great ghost stories from our newest member, Miss MJ Dickson.
Hello, gentlemen. How are you this evening?
Welcome to the society. And for everybody behind the scenes, we're recording this through Zoom, and we go off camera. And I'm pretty sure MJ has the coolest Zoom image that I've seen. And I take a lot of Zoom meetings.
Thanks. Yeah,
you're floating like on your back. How did you get this picture done? This is way off topic.
It was really awkward, honestly. I'm actually balancing on a chair that was photoshopped out in one of the most haunted prisons in the UK.
Nice.
Because why not? You're in there.
As long as you're there, you might as well do a photo shoot.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Right.
I was actually locked in the prison for a week.
Wow. Well, you'd worked on Paranormal Lockdown. So was that part of that program?
Not Paranormal Lockdown. That was actually for a YouTube series that we had done called In Search of the Paranormal.
Where do we get started? Well, other than saying that you can find out more about her at mjdixon.com. And from there, you can find out a lot more about her, including how to become part of our Patreon community. Let's dive in first as well. I think you are our first South African guest. Mm-hmm. So you are a pioneer and trailblazer there.
Well, okay, keep up with me here. I am born in Zimbabwe, raised in South Africa. I'm Greek Cypriot, married to a South African Scotsman living in England. Yeah, I know.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. I didn't quite follow all of it. But I'm okay with that. And then knowing that you never sleep and you're in the world of paranormal, I'm like, yeah, this fits.
Right.
This is your perfect member of our society. I think what you kind of nailed it, Scott. It's like I don't even know where to start. You've worked on all these shows that I'm a junkie when it comes to
yes, he is
ghost investigation shows. Like if I can't think of something to watch, I'll throw some stupid ghost show on. Most of them are great. I say stupid because I know that most of them are kind of like a little cheeserific, but Destination Fear is legitimately like top 1 or 2 of all of them that I have. I do love Kindred Spirits. I know you don't work on Kindred Spirits. And Paranormal Lockdown, I haven't watched in a long time. So I guess maybe we'll start there. How did you get into working in the TV side of the paranormal?
I was actually thrown into it. Basically, I've been working in the paranormal field here in the UK for well over a decade. I became known for having connections to some locations that some people might not be able to get into, or just a really good rapport with people in the field here. Nick Groff actually reached out to me back in 2018, I think it was, when they decided that they wanted to do a series over here, the season. Some of their locations were, maybe not quite fitting for the show. And so he was like, hey, could you perhaps help? First of all, I'm on the phone going, oh my God, it's Nick Groff. What the hell? Not every day you get that phone call. So I ended up getting a few locations for them and being the production location consultant. Something like that. I don't know, whatever it was. And I'd organized a whole bunch of interviews and things for him. And it went really well. And I was like, wow, actually, I really enjoyed that. I love putting things together. And that was sort of my first bit of experience in television. So I actually have Nick to thank for that. Mm-hmm. From there, it kind of snowballed. I became friends with a few producers in the industry, and one of them contacted me and she was like, hey, Travel Channel are going to do this show called Most Terrifying Places.
Sure. Yeah.
And we're looking for a production coordinator in the UK to do some UK segments. And I was like, great, I'll do it. What's that?
Yeah.
What is that job? So I ended up working on that show. I ended up being on screen for a show here in the UK. I was cast for that called Paranormal Captured, which aired in the States. I think it's on Discovery Plus USA at the moment.
Okay.
So yeah, I kind of fell into it. I didn't have any television experience. I just knew how to organize things, and I knew the paranormal.
Yeah, I was going to say, you must have had a presence of some sort so that they knew if we need an in on a haunted location, that this is a person that might know those answers.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, from hosting the convention, I've worked with people who have all of these TV shows. I've had them as speakers at my events. I've helped out on Ghost Adventures. I've helped out behind the scenes on several of the shows whenever they've needed an interview, whenever they've needed help with a location, not necessarily just here in the UK, but in the States as well.
So that's, I guess, how Nick Groff knew of you and why he called.
I think I had met Nick at a convention before then, but no, it came from, conventions and getting to know the guys and that sort of thing.
Cool.
I think there's a good lesson there of, for any creator, whether it's in the world of the paranormal or whatever, there's all of these little niche audience type things of fascinations, of hobbies, of interests. There's conventions for just about everything nowadays, so it's a really great place to do a lot of networking. For one, you're just going to have fun because it's you're surrounded by people that share the same passion, but two, it might lead to career advancement too.
Absolutely agree with that. And I keep saying that to people within the paranormal field who want to learn more and who want to, meet the guys from these TV shows and learn more about the television side of things. I always say to them, just go to the conventions. That's your best source. And they're so much fun.
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't able to get up to Sault Marie this year for the Michigan ParaCon. I almost went. I was like close to pulling the trigger. And I've only been to one paranormal convention. It was the Galena convention. It was the first year, and it was still a ton of fun. Like, it was pretty small. They were still getting started, and it was still just, come on, who doesn't want to sit around and listen to weird ghost stories all day long?
Yes. And obviously so many of our guests are people that I know through conferences, conventions, largely the Michigan ParaCon and also the Chicago Ghost Conference that had been going for quite a long time. And our first ever guest, Jeff Belanger, was our first guest. And he's somebody I met in Chicago at a conference ages and ages ago. So I think now's an appropriate time to also shout out and thank Tim Ellis, a recent inductee, for allowing us to finally meet face to face by having you present in Michigan.
You know what? It's so funny to hear that Jeff was your very first guest, because every time I do a podcast, everybody goes, our very first guest was Jeff Belanger. And I'm like, really? That guy gets around.
He's everywhere. He is such a good storyteller, though. It's kind of hard not to have him on.
Phenomenal. He is so great.
So I'm curious, as we're talking about, ghost hunting shows, paranormal investigation shows, and, we're rattling off Ghost Adventures and Destination Fear. And of course, a billion other ones flood our minds. So many of them are America based. Does England have its own set of ghost hunting shows that we are missing out on by being Americans and we're not seeing them maybe?
Well, we do, but there's a big but. Honestly, I don't think you're missing out on all that much. And I hate to say it. It's quite sad, actually, because we've got such incredible locations out here. And the UK shows that we do have are just not taking full advantage of these locations. I don't know. I think they're just lacking something, in my opinion. There's just always something missing from them, whether it is the storytelling aspect or whether it is more on the investigation side. I'm not too sure. But, we've got a couple. We've got a handful, I suppose, that are doing quite well over here. And I'm actually hoping that they do get over to the States, because then, they'll get a little bit more traction, and that then allows for another season and perhaps a bigger budget. And,
for sure.
That's how television works. So I do hope that they get the recognition in the States and that they do spread. But people aren't that big on paranormal shows in the UK.
Oh, wild.
It's not a thing.
I wonder if it's because everything is already so old and everybody's like, yeah, there's ghosts. Stop.
Well, that and, one of the biggest challenges that I faced when I started my paranormal convention out here, Sage ParaCon, was that people, when they hear paranormal convention, they kind of think, the Psychical Research Society or ASAP or one of the more
sciencey.
Yeah. So it's less fun, more 90-year-old in a brown suit giving you a lecture about anomalous phenomena. It's not so much like, hey, these are really cool ghost stories, or these are really cool legends, or cryptid stories, or just fun, strange, weird, wacky things.
In all seriousness, though, I am curious, and sorry to cut you off, but I am very curious because Britain is quite a bit older than America, and is it a cultural thing where people aren't so excited? It's almost like America is the kid who's really excited to hear a story, and Britain's just like, we've heard them.
Exactly. That's exactly it. It really is. And so, I had that constant battle with, hey, guys, conventions can be fun. Shows can be fun. It doesn't have to be stuck up, snooty, suit and tie, scientific all the time. And unfortunately, that is very much the British mentality when it comes to paranormal shows. The moment you try and do a show over here that is great storytelling and investigating, people go, well, there's not really that many controls in place. Oh, well, they could have done this. And I'm like, well, it's not a lab. You're out there in the field exploring, and that's great. So it's chalk and cheese. It's so different.
Chalk and cheese. Chalk and cheese. I've never heard that saying before, but I'm already a fan. The irony is that, of course, I wish there was a little bit more of the level-headedness that you're talking about that maybe is too pervasive in England. So if we did a true mashup where we tried to balance the entertainment with the science, then maybe we'd have the ultimate show.
What? I have been saying this for years.
There we go. Sidebar, we got a pitch somewhere.
All right. I thought this was going to be an episode, but I think it's a development meeting now.
Hey, I'm all in for that.
Yeah. Nice.
Now, I have to ask, I have so many questions, and in no way do I want to offend anyone, kind of. How real are these shows? Is that too broad of a question? Yeah.
No, I get asked that a lot. And honestly, I can only speak from my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I am very fortunate to have worked on very legit shows. So, for instance, when I first met up with Nick and Katrina for Paranormal Lockdown, they were filming an episode at Margam Castle. And it's about a 3-hour drive from me. So I headed out to Wales to go and meet up with them. And I got there and I was like, so what hotel are you guys staying in? And Katrina looked at me, she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, you're
staying here.
Your hotel. And she was like, they have showers here? This is exciting. And I was like, yeah, but what hotel are you staying in? And she's like, here.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, okay, sure. And then a few minutes later, I was like, hey, Nick, so where about are you guys staying? And he was like, here. And I was like, no, I mean, where are you, while you're filming? And he was like,
we
here.
Legitimately staying at the prison.
And I was like, oh, I'll be damned, whether they were saying that to me just because, keep with the credibility of the show, I couldn't tell you. But
Sure.
They seemed really legit. They seemed very honest about it. Everyone kept giving the same answer, even though I tried to catch them out. So, so I was fortunate in the sense of, Nick and them were really raw when it came to their investigating and that sort of thing. And that's what I appreciated about the show the most. Same with the guys from Destination Fear. They're very honest about their shows and each episode, each location. I organized the ones in Ireland for them, and I'd warned Dakota beforehand. I said to him, I was like, dude, Spike Island, just to pre-warn you, it's an island. It's 10 times the size of Alcatraz. It is terrifying. On top of that, you've got like 4,000 years of history. So, good luck.
Yeah.
And he messaged me from the location. He was like, oh my God, you weren't kidding. Like, this place is real. I was like, yeah.
I think the reason I like Destination Fear so much is because if those kids are acting, the Academy needs to give them a call, because they are genuine in their fear. And that's why I love it so much, because it's hysterical. I love watching people get scared. It's a horrible habit, but that's why I watch the shows. And then kind of the same with some of these others, with Kindred Spirits. Like, I really like those two, and I just believe them. But then maybe Nick left Ghost Adventures because of certain things going on where they were kind of fibbing on. I don't know. So this is all rumor. I don't actually know why Nick left Ghost Adventures. Do you know, Scott?
I think he just wanted to pursue his own creativity. That's my guess also, I suppose.
I think it was a blend of just creative differences and wanting to keep things very real and on track. Just from what I can tell.
I'm on the way to develop our second show already here, because I'm looking up Spike Island, which I'd never heard of before. That's amazing. And when we had Tim on, we were talking about Isle Royale, I think it was.
That's right.
So maybe we could just do a show about like really terrifying islands, just all dotting across the globe.
Well, if I go, I'll be thrown up over the edge of the boat every time we have to go to the island. So,
Oh no. I've investigated one of the most notorious haunted islands in the world twice. Poveglia in Italy.
Oh my gosh, no way. That's a top of my bucket list.
wow.
Yep.
The Plague Island.
Yeah, the Plague Island. I actually spent 2 full days investigating Poveglia, and it's very boring.
No
Break it to you. I hate to break it to you. I mean, other than getting 1 or 2 EVPs and some weird camera glitches, unfortunately, I was not possessed by #it's a demon.
Right.
You know, I did not encounter any 5th level demonic entities from hell. You know, there was just some plague victims, but it was very quiet. It felt very peaceful.
Well, that's good.
They've turned half of the island into a vineyard, so which is kind of disturbing given that half the island is made from human ash.
Exactly.
So, you know, it's a great vintage.
I'm getting notes of plague victim in this one. Oh, wow.
There's actually another island in Italy, just off Venice, probably about 25 minutes by boat from Poveglia, and it's called San Servolo. San Servolo still has the insane asylum on the island. They've actually turned it into a museum, and it's really well kept. It's way more terrifying than Poveglia, and it's 1 water taxi away. You know, it's legal to get to and visit, unlike Poveglia. You know, you have to pay some questionable taxi boat person a lot of money to take you to the island.
So did you smuggle yourself in? Is that how you got to Poveglia?
Yeah, you're not legally allowed on the island, so don't do it, kids.
Wow. I think I'm kind I'm of the mind that anytime, and like I said, I watch these shows religiously. I shouldn't use the word religious, but regularly. And anytime they go to a location where there's a ton of history, I'm like, I like those little houses owned by a woman for 85 years and nobody's ever been in it. And I'm like, yeah, this one's going to be freaky.
Interesting.
Why?
Yeah.
Because there's something about them collecting all of this information about the history, about all the backstory, and that's cool. And I like learning about it, but it takes up half of the episode. I want to see them investigate. I want to see them actually experience something. And that's why I'm watching this show. I mean, there is a cool show. Oh gosh, it's called like Ghosts of. I think Nick was one of the first ones to do it. Ghosts of
Shepherdstown.
Yeah, and then they had like future seasons after that, and there's one out right now. But that's kind of neat because they investigate an entire town for an entire season, and so they're going to these various locations within a town that you don't know much about, and then they're gleaning the information of the history about that town. But when they go to somewhere that's really famous, that I even happen to know some things about it, it's just not as exciting for me.
Makes a good point.
I don't know. That's
each their own, I guess. Because I think I'm on the opposite side from you on this one. The more you can really know the history, to me, the more you kind of know what you're looking for. And I guess maybe there's a little bit less mystery there because you've already got some preconceived notions of what you're hoping or trying to discover or make contact with. But, you know, it creates an importance to me. Like if you're at the Gettysburg battlefield, you're connecting with a cherished history or something like that.
Yeah, my bad. Like Gettysburg would be amazing. That's true.
That's what we tried to do with our YouTube show that we created. During lockdown, we were fortunate that anything to do with filming could still go ahead. And because we had the little production budget and everything was done legit, we were able to continue filming. And we had these locations that were completely shut down, but we had access to them for 8-9 days at a time. So my team and I spent the entire week investigating and interviewing people and just really delving into each location. And when you spend more than a few hours in a night investigating, it just opens up so much more. I mean, the story really unfolds and you start to figure out more about who is actually there and their stories rather than just, oh, this place is haunted. Okay. You get a bit more out of it.
Yeah, I agree. You kind of become one with the town. It becomes comfortable. I think once you're kind of comfortable in a place, that's when things might happen more. I don't know.
I certainly think so. I mean, I've got a few locations here in the UK that I have investigated repeatedly for over a decade now, and they will remain some of my favorites. I'm actually at one of them tomorrow.
So do you record these investigations, MJ, and then post them, or are they part of a show? And forgive me for not knowing, but obviously our listeners want to know.
I do film some of them for my Patreon, and it's more for my patrons that I do these investigations. So a lot of people want to investigate in the UK, but obviously they, may not have the funds to fly over here. So I take my patrons on little adventures with me. And we do live investigations. So I will hook up 2 or 3 different cameras. We do it via Zoom. They get to explore the location with me. They get to ask EVP questions. We do Esther's method experiments together. We do all sorts of weird things. So yeah, I like taking people on the little adventures with me.
Scott, we have another business idea here.
so just to steal MJ's business idea.
Yeah. Oh, wait.
Or you can just join my Patreon.
There we go. Exactly.
That's true. We should just do that.
We should work with MJ to collaborate in some way, shape, or form, because whether it's getting her out here to more of our favorite haunts or doing a virtual tandem investigation, or we'll come up with something. I think we have a lot of motivated people just between the 3 of us right here to keep creating.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I am such a yes person, so I'm in.
Nice.
I want to know a little bit more about what Scott mentioned in the intro about you being a skeptical psychic.
Well, so I grew up with the best of both worlds. My father was a military man, very, very straight and narrow. Everything had a logical explanation, seeing is believing. And my mom's side of the family, I'm actually 5th generation psychic medium. So I didn't really have a choice in the matter. Mm-hmm. It's quite strong in our family. I actually have it on my dad's side as well. My great-grandmother was a psychic medium on his side. So I grew up with the very logical, debunking, skeptical side, as well as the completely away with the fairies side.
I'm just thinking like how rough maybe some of these family parties would have been, where you have both of these different sides of the family in the same dinner table.
They actually, I always thought it was strange that my dad never dismissed anything that my mom said. He was very skeptical, and until, her premonition happened or whatever the case may be, he kind of just kept his opinion to himself about things. And he was very respectful, and I loved that about him. And it was only later on in his life where he had a near-death experience. And when he came back from that, he was a completely different person.
Wow.
And I asked him about it. He was always very outspoken in that. And after that experience, he became very quiet. And I sat down with him the one day, shortly before he passed away, and I asked him what happened. And he told me that he remembered being on the hospital bed, seeing the heart monitor flatline. It was like he fell asleep, and he woke up again with his mom and his brothers standing next to the bed. And they told him to go back. It wasn't his time.
Wow.
And he came back. 15 minutes later, mind you, he should not have come back at all.
Wow.
They thought he would have had brain damage. He was perfectly fine. And it changed him completely. He very much after that believed in all things paranormal.
Wow.
So,
it was intense.
His personal story that he'd been telling himself for so many years completely changed. I can't imagine that would be an easy.
Yeah, your whole belief system is shattered.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was lucky in the sense that I was raised to look at things from a very logical perspective first, and then look at the spiritual side. And actually, Grant Wilson gave me some really sound advice when I first started investigating. And he said to me, start on Earth and work your way up.
Nice.
I like that.
So the skeptical thing is you look at the logical reasoning first, but if you're psychic, then don't you technically lean into your intuition? And like how?
Not really. Um, I call myself a reluctant medium.
Okay.
A lot of things that I think psychics will fall into this trap quite often. When you're in an investigation and you are on edge and you're slightly spooked already, and you know it's dark, it's creepy, there's things happening around you, you tend to fall into that group mentality, like, oh my God, it's haunted. So people will naturally assume that every knock, bump, and creak is paranormal. So you kind of do work yourself up quite a bit. And I think you can sway your own opinion of the place. You know, if you, how can I put it? Sometimes when you think you're picking up on something psychically, it could just be an overactive imagination. And it does blur the lines, especially if you're in a fight or flight mode. Or, you know, if there's a lot of other people involved. So I don't know. I think that's why I don't advertise myself as a psychic medium for television shows and things. I'm very careful with that. I go in as an investigator and I use whatever spidey senses I have to kind of hone in on hotspots within the location and focus my experiments and equipment on those locations, or, you know, to communicate with a certain person that I am picking up.
You can tell the difference between this is my intuition and psychic response versus making this up.
You can. I tend to lean more on the investigation side. I don't know if it's because I don't fully trust in my own abilities 100% just yet. I think it's arrogant to say that, like, whatever you pick up, you're accurate and you're spot on. So for me, it's more of a case of, oh, I'm picking up on what I think is this and this and this. Let's see if I can document that with equipment.
Yeah.
It's nice to have something be able to back up what you're getting and validate it in some way, rather than just leaning purely on a psychic ability. Because what if you're wrong?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I want to talk to you a lot about the investigation side. I think you would be maybe the first, straight up ghost hunter, paranormal investigator. I dabble, and I'm sure had many others that have dabbled a bit, but you are really into this. So I want to know about how you got into it in general, but also, I used to speak at a college usually every fall. And one of the questions that I would get asked to speak on is about demographics when it comes to ghost stories and the paranormal, and blue collar versus white collar, demographics racially, and also gender. And I would say that, when I'm giving a speech, the vast majority of my audience is female. But when you look on TV, and even when you look at the local ghost hunting groups, yes, there are females out there, but it's a fairly male-dominated world.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
So I want to talk to you just about being a female ghost hunter, and maybe it's different in Europe. I'm not sure. If you could just touch on that topic at all, just being a female in this, what is traditionally, which is odd because it's a very small tradition at this point, male-dominated world, even though historically we have this idea of a feminine intuition. So females should be leading the charge more.
I agree with that. Being female in this industry is tough. It's really tough. First of all, for some reason, it's always these big burly guys in t-shirts that are 4 sizes too small.
Yeah, and their tans
are running around. Right? Like, come at me, bro. Most of these people are my friends, so I am allowed to say this. Just throwing that out there. But it's very rare that you see women leading the charge and then going into these terrifying locations and, being portrayed as a strong female. Anytime you do see a female in the show, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, this is so terrifying. I need a man to come and save me and make me feel safe. And it really upsets me.
Sure.
Because, I'm the first person to charge into a location and run after whatever it is I've seen.
Mm-hmm. I'd be waiting for you to come rescue me. You kidding?
It is really difficult to be taken seriously as a female investigator. A lot of people, especially in the television industry, will see you as, you're the weak link. You're the weaker of the investigators. You're not going to sit alone in a dark room all night on your own. You're not going to. They kind of automatically presume that you're more the sensitive psychic medium side rather than the charge in head first and investigate side.
The damsel in distress. This is what's been plowed into the brains of every man since they were born.
Exactly. And it's really frustrating to kind of break that mold, but we are starting to see that in the field. We are starting to see a huge rise in female investigators in smaller teams, your local teams. Here in the UK, there are a lot of all-female teams. Strong woman leading the charge, investigating all night. And some of the places that I even kind of go, well, it makes me a little nervous. They're kind of showing me up. But it's good. It's great seeing that, for instance, Michigan ParaCon. Big kudos to Brad and Tim for including such a female-heavy lineup for a convention for a change. We never used to see any of that. So it's nice that the ladies are kind of getting a little bit of time to shine and show that we can stand our ground, and our research is just as important.
It's so wild when you think of, this quote unquote industry, which it is an industry. It's all about like opening your mind to any possibility. And yet certain things are so deeply ingrained that it's still an uphill battle.
Well, you have it easy in the States and in the UK. We've got it really easy over here when you're saying it's an uphill battle. I mean, coming from South Africa, I ended up living in the UK because of the paranormal. Growing up as a psychic medium in South Africa, if you had ever said that you speak to dead people, you would have been stoned or burned at the stake.
Yeah.
Like, it was so taboo. You did not speak about anything like that. So, growing up, my mom, I remember her coaching me like, now, don't tell the kids at school. Like, let's keep our quirky, kooky, spooky family to ourselves. Yeah.
But there must still be like folklore and pass down stories, even if people maybe see them or try to just push them off as entertainment. Or is that just really nothing that people like to talk about down there? It's
funny. There's two sides to South Africa. Or shall I say Southern Africa? Zimbabwe is like this as well. They're very religious. They're really steadfast in their faith, and that's amazing. But with that comes the very religious zealots. So speaking to dead people is communing with the demon. It's all sorts of, devil worship. The moment you say that you can do tarot cards or anything of the sort, anything is perceived as devil worship across the board. There was such a satanic panic in South Africa. It was actually quite scary. And it was just when people started talking more openly about tarot cards and psychics and that sort of thing. So you do have that side of it, but then you have the African culture who to this day still believe in cryptids and they still worship cryptids. For instance, Zimbabwe, they have the Nyami Nyami, which is basically the Zimbabwean version of Nessie.
Okay.
It's a large serpent-like creature in the Zambezi River. The Tonga people will still sacrifice a white calf every year to the Nyami Nyami. If you go fishing on the Zambezi River, before you can have a sip of beer or any alcohol, you catch your first fish, you give your first sip to Nyami Nyami by pouring it in the river, and then you're allowed to continue fishing. And having more beers, obviously. You're not allowed to drink before Nyami Nyami gets his beer. There's all sorts of little traditions and things that African people still keep to. They still have statues of the Nyami Nyami, these beautiful soapstone carvings all around Lake Kariba and along the Zambezi River. It's so ingrained in each generation. You'd think that they'd still be like, well, nowadays it's just folklore. But they still practice these little, how can I put it?
Rituals. They're superstitious.
Yeah, these little superstitions, these rituals towards these, river gods and all sorts. So you can talk about things like that. You can talk about sangomas, Southern African witch doctors. You can talk about curses, hexes, hoodoo, voodoo. You can talk about cryptids. You can talk about anything, but heaven forbid you speak about talking to dead people.
Wow, the missionaries really did a number.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I love it because, those types of the folklore, the cryptids, I mean, that is what that consists of what someone's culture is. These stories that have been passed down over time. So I'm happy to see that they haven't been completely just eradicated due to other being uptight, as we saw like when Hawaii basically got taken over, and then it was illegal to practice Hawaiian customs for a very, very long time. Even the language or the hula dance was against the law for a long time. So I'm happy to see that something survived, even though obviously there was a little bit of colonial expansion, I think, that happened down there.
I think it's funny to see it now, looking back at 10, 12 years ago in South Africa, where they hardly had access to any paranormal TV shows. So there was no paranormal pop culture. There was no influence. There was nothing. It was still taboo, and that was it. And now it's like, oh my God, did you see the new episode of Ghost Adventures? I need to get my hands on that new device.
Cool.
Yeah. So, all these people, all these friends of mine that 10 years ago were going, oh my God, crazy lady. Yeah, it's a good job you live in England. Now they're all like, oh my gosh, did you see Kindred Spirits?
Wow.
Like, yeah, I know those guys.
Boy, you don't think of these people as being like ambassadors of new thought to the rest of the world, but that's pretty cool. The power of television,
Absolutely.
On that note, a little bit, quote unquote, did you see that cool new piece of tech or whatever? What is your favorite instrument to use when you're out and about?
Digital recorders. I am obsessed with EVP.
Nice.
I'm absolutely obsessed with hearing their voices. And the reason is because from a single EVP, you can tell the time period. You can tell if the person you're communicating with is male, female, young, old. Are they in a good mood, a bad mood? Are they sad? Are they angry? Are they, you can tell so much more about who you're trying to speak to from a single EVP rather than, could you make those lights flash?
Yeah.
I think, and I just find it fascinating to be able to sit down and have a conversation. I could talk the hind legs off a donkey. So I think they just get so fed up with me talking all the time that they're just like, for God's sakes, answer her.
Say something. Get out. Oh, did you hear that?
Right? Maybe why I get out EVP so often.
Yeah. It was so peaceful here before. I think with the recorder as well, there's more of a connection, and it's more intimate. It just feels like a conversation more so than having the barrier of an EMF detector in between you that's flashing or blaring a sound. I want to build on this idea, or I guess I'll ask you first, as someone who has some psychic gifts. I've always heard it described, and I've echoed this, that we all have some level of psychic ability inherently, some more developed than others, but it is like a muscle and you can develop it further. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay, so
the
if
more
somebody
you use it, the stronger it gets.
Okay, so that's one of the questions is how the hell do you use it? There's no owner's manual that comes with this.
Right.
And if you are an investigator that's going out and trying to, just elicit some sort of a response, is there something that you should do, whether it's getting into the right headspace or meditating, or how would you advise somebody that's never really tried to explore their psychic side to develop it further, whether they're in preparation or if they're on site during an investigation?
Okay, so when I first started developing my psychic abilities, the first thing that I started doing was whenever I'd, for instance, go to a bar and have a drink with friends, I would take a moment to just sit there for a few seconds with my eyes closed and scan the bar. And what I mean by that is you look around, you kind of see, okay, there's like an old guy sitting in the corner. There's, a group of youngsters sitting, watching the football. There's whatever. You have a look at who's around you, and then close your eyes and try and focus on their energy and where they are in the room. Just like when you're sitting with your back to a door and your loved one walks in, you can kind of pick up on their energy, their presence. They've walked into the room.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of do the same thing. So you start practicing by trying to hone in on people's energy, what the sounds around you, like take in what you can kind of get from their personality just by listening to them or feeling out their energy. And when you go to a haunted location, close your eyes and do the same thing. See if you can pick up on anyone around you, as in, do you feel the change in the atmosphere as if somebody's just walked in, and just kind of go with your gut instinct. Feel it out. The more you do that, the more you start honing it, the more accurate it becomes. And you can start telling, oh, that's male. Oh, that's female. Oh, that's young. Oh, that's older. You start getting more and more accurate with the information just by trusting your instinct and feeling out the energy.
I think that's the key there, is just kind of tracking the information. Because for me personally, judgment so easily comes in, and you're putting an opinion on what you're feeling. And then I feel like now it's no longer a psychic feeling. I'm judging this, and whether I'm like being critical or not, I'm considering what I'm feeling as opposed to a different level. I don't know how else to say that.
It does take some time. When I first started reading psychic development books, one of the phrases that I came across quite often was, you need to put your ego aside.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking to myself, I don't have a bloody ego. I'm not an egotistical person. Like, what do you mean put your ego aside? And then I started realizing that when you get information, when you have things pop into your head, just go with it without even thinking, because as soon as that little voice creeps in and you go, no, I can't. I'm influencing myself, or maybe I was influenced by my surroundings, or what if it was this? The moment that doubt and that little inner voice creeps in, you're throwing it out the window. And you'd be surprised how accurate you actually are the more you just trust whatever pops into your head, whatever feelings you're getting, just go with it. You start seeing patterns. You start actually being able to connect it to history of the location, or whatever the case may be. So I call it psychic Tourette's. Just like spit it out, just get it out, and deal with the consequences later.
It seems a lot like meditation, because the real only true way to get into a meditative state is when there is no judgment. In other words, not allowing the ego to judge the thoughts that are coming through, because once you start judging those thoughts, you get stuck on the thoughts. And that's why I haven't slept for the past 2 weeks.
See, I can't meditate because I close my eyes, I relax, I take deep breaths, and I'm like, I'm clearing my mind. I've got to add bacon and eggs to the shopping list. Right. Damn it. Like, totally. I can't do it. I battle with that.
You just focus on the breathing. I for the longest time thought I could not, like, I was unmeditatable. Like, I just can't do it because I know my mind is always going. I've always got so many projects. I'm multitasking. It's going to be impossible. And so I really psyched myself out that it was not something that was for me. But, going through some of these guided meditations was awesome. And it turns out even I, who thought I couldn't do it, meditation is really great, and it is possible. The more you do it, the easier it gets. Yeah. So
the problem is that every time I do, the entire afterlife goes, oh, opportunity to talk. She's listening. So not that easy.
So you can basically do the Estes method without the spirit box.
Yep.
You just kind of echo whatever's popping in your head. Interesting. Yep. That's cool. I mean, I guess it's cool if it's cool for you.
It also sounds horrifying.
Yeah. Right. Oh, so I wanted to make sure that we talked about, MJ, you are always doing and lining up cool, fun, new events, whether it's the Sage ParaCon. So I want to give you a little opportunity to talk about Sage ParaCon in general. And then if you have any other live events coming up, investigations that people can join in on, anything else that you'd want to talk about in that category here.
Thank you so much. I do have several events coming up. I'm always going 100 miles an hour. And whenever I do find myself bored and a few minutes to spare, I end up organizing another event. So I have Sage ParaCon coming up next year. I started doing the convention in the UK. This is my 6th one that I'll be doing next year. And I'm doing my 2nd one in the States next year as well. So Sage ParaCon USA takes place the 29th of September to the 1st of October at Belgrove Plantation in King George, Virginia. And then at the end of October, we have Sage ParaCon in the UK, and that is at Coombe Abbey Hotel in Coventry in the West Midlands. That takes place from the 26th of October to the 29th. Both of those events, we focus a lot on learning. There's a lot of hands-on workshops. There's a lot of different things, whether it's psychic development, whether it's investigating techniques, whether it is monster hunting, whatever the case may be. I really focus on people walking away from that event having learned at least one new thing. It's a very big thing for me. So I'm quite picky with my speakers. And hence I did it online as well, the Sage ParaCon online throughout lockdown. I wanted to bring people different lectures, different topics, but I also wanted to give newer people a platform to talk as well. We don't often see new, fresh blood on the convention circuit. So it was just a nice platform to give some newer people a chance to talk as well and share their findings.
And speaking of elevating some new voices in the ParaCon space, I have to take a moment to thank you and shout out that you have had Sunspot be part of the Sage ParaCon virtually the last couple of times. I know they've had a lot of fun doing it, and of course, they're near and dear to the show. Wendy, the drummer violinist, is my wife, and Mike was, I think, our second inductee into the Fantastic Story Society. And of course, he and I worked together with American Ghost Walks. And then finally, in Michigan, just recently, you were finally able to see Sunspot in person.
That'd be cool. You've got video of me ugly crying because they ended up playing that damn song.
Oh, yes. What was it? Which one was it again?
Calm and Carry On.
Yeah, that was that one. Okay, yes.
Yeah. Not every day that a band you love writes a song because of an interview they did with you.
How awesome. I didn't know the backstory of that. That's cool.
Well, Sunspot, Mike and them interviewed me on their podcast right after I finished chemotherapy.
Oh.
Yeah, I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer 6-7 years ago. I finished my chemo in that 6 or 7 years ago. And so I had to take obviously a couple of years break from all things paranormal to kind of get through all of that. And that's how I started my paranormal convention. I was in a hospital bed receiving chemo, given 6 months to live. And then I decided, well, if I'm going out, I'm going out with a bang. So I'm going to organize a paranormal convention and get all my favorite people together. And if that's the last thing I ever do, well then, hey, that's awesome. I had a fun time.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I survived, obviously. Otherwise, this would be a very awkward interview.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I spoke to Sunspot on their show, we were talking about, what it was like going through the chemo and everything else that was going on. And they wrote the song Keep Calm and Carry On based on, people who have been through a real tough time and the guys in the trenches and those old Keep Calm and Carry On movies. And when they told me that and I heard the song, literally that song has got me through so many dark days.
Oh my
it's ridiculous. I love it. I love it so much. And so they played it live at Michigan. And the moment they started, I was just snot and tears everywhere.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, the Sage ParaCon annually is like another celebration of life for you each time.
It really is.
Wow.
Every year is like, it's a little nod to I kicked cancer's ass. Add another year to remission. Yeah.
Wow.
And I get to celebrate it and hang out with a bunch of really cool, like-minded people. So it's awesome.
So other upcoming events for this Halloween season?
October, I'm actually back in Virginia. I'm hosting 4 nights of investigations at Belgrove Plantation in King George. And it is a 2-course meal followed by an investigation. But on Halloween, I am going to become Chef MJ. I am going to be cooking the meal for whoever is joining us. And we are doing a proper Samhain witches' dumb supper. Now, a dumb supper is inviting the spirits of the location, as well as our ancestors and guides and all of those on the other side, on the night that the veil is the thinnest, to come and join us for dinner. And it's quite a traditional witches celebration. So I've decided to do that at Belgrove Plantation and follow it with the investigation.
I love that.
That is really cool. It feels like Victorian or something, really throwback. Could you talk a little bit about the location? Because I don't know anything about this plantation.
Belgrove Plantation is the birthplace of President James Madison.
Oh. Yes. I'm talking to you from Madison, Wisconsin, named after him.
It is a beautiful southern plantation. It's just absolutely gorgeous. It's quite small. It's 4 bedrooms, but absolutely exquisite. It is now a bed and breakfast with all the southern charm and hospitality that you would expect from down that way. Quite large in the sense of the other buildings on the site. There's the caretaker's cottage. There's the summer kitchens. There's several different buildings on the property, as well as a quaint little church. So for investigating, it's really cool because you get to experience the main plantation house as well as all the surrounding buildings. The plantation itself was owned by 4 main families, from the Madisons, the Turners, the Hipkin Bernard family, as well as the Conway family. So I think the Conways and the Madisons were quite intertwined. It definitely has some really cool, interesting stories around it, you know, from Mrs. Hooper, who used to host these extravagant lemonade tea parties in the back garden, who has been seen in the house, to Catherine Turner. Her name is still etched in the window of one of the bedrooms. And they would do that with their engagement ring to check if the diamond was real.
Oh.
And there's this dramatic love story where she was supposed to marry someone else and she didn't. And she ended up marrying another guy and some doctor, and the house fell into disrepair. And there's just a lot of really cool stories throughout its history, including a lover's quarrel and a duel. It's very cool.
Yeah.
There is more sinister stuff. The plantation overseer by the name of Baldwin Lee actually slit his own throat. So yeah, from one extreme, you've got these really cool hauntings to the creepier, scarier side of it, which is really sad. But altogether, it is one of the most active locations I've ever investigated in the world.
And that's coming from somebody who has been to some of the most iconic places around the world.
Wow.
Hence, I keep hosting events there. I've just fallen in love with it. I'm actually writing a book about it. I'm doing a little bit more research on that, and hopefully I'll have that book done by the beginning of next year.
Excellent. So I'm just looking at it on Google Maps right now. It's right on a river. There just seems to be this connection about moving water and very active locations. So that's kind of continuing that. It's a really small town across the bridge, which has a American Revolution museum at it. Otherwise, there's just tons of farm field around it. So that if you want the creepy vibe, which I always do, it's hard to get that vibe in the middle of a busy city. This is not the case here. And one of the farm fields, it looks like just two farm fields away, is called the Woodlawn Historic and Archaeological District. So clearly an area that has a lot of prehistory dating back to ancient times, which you don't always get a lot in America. So this must be a historic location. And I always find it fascinating when people continue to return to a certain location, even if it was separated by generations, if not thousands of years. So this is a fascinating area that I'm surprised Stephen King hasn't written about yet.
Well, one of the really cool things about this plantation house as well is it's on the grounds of the Rappahannock tribe. So it's on the Rappahannock River.
Yes.
And the Rappahannock tribe still host their powwows at the location.
Wow.
Yeah. Talk about spiritually charged.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
I want to go.
Scott just made his Halloween plans.
Yeah, I was going to say, I might drive down now and just start warming up the kitchen for you.
one of the summer kitchens.
Yes. Where can people find out about Sage and also this upcoming event?
On my website, mjdickson.com, you can find majority of the information about the events on the events page. Otherwise, for Belgrove Plantation, the event that we're hosting there for Halloween, you can go to belgroveplantation.com. It should be on their events calendar. If you want to know anything about, I do a lot of things. So I mean, I've got my clothing line, I've got a paranormal card game, I've got all sorts of things going on. So the best place to find everything all in one spot would be sageparanormal.co.uk.
Excellent. I don't think we've ever talked about this, but Max and I are huge gamers. We've done game-oriented episodes of the show. So yeah, the fact that you have a paranormal game is definitely up our alley big time.
I was going to say, this is news that we should have known.
Well, basically, it is a paranormal version of Cards Against Humanity.
Oh my God.
And it's vile. It's on the box. It says this is a disgusting card game for paranormal enthusiasts.
We got to get it.
It is vile. It is terrible. And these are bragging points.
Will not stop laughing.
As you know, we do love to give the floor to you, shine the spotlight on you, let you regale us with one of your favorite stories. And you teased a very fascinating one, which I don't know what the story is. So we'll be learning together. Max and I will be learning together. I'll just say, take it away.
This is quite possibly one of the coolest things I've ever experienced in the paranormal. Back in 2016, I decided to host the investigation portion of Sage ParaCon at Warwick Castle. Now, I had investigated Warwick Castle on numerous occasions, and I'd found out that Aleister Crowley, one of the world's most infamous occultists, used to hold seances with Anne the Fourth Countess of Warwick in a particular bedroom in the castle. So I was super fascinated with this place. It is just an extravagant, beautiful, absolutely breathtaking castle. So I thought, you know what? Why not? Let's host the investigation then. I went there during the day to go and make sure I knew where all the wax figures and... I mean, it's owned by Madame Two Swords. So you can imagine there are wax figures
Amazing.
everywhere. So I kind of wanted to walk through and make sure I knew where all of the wax figures were in each room, as well as see the size of the rooms for the investigations. And, you know, it is going to be groups of people that I'm filtering through. So I needed to just prepare myself. You don't want to bump into a mannequin, you know, some wax figure when you turn a corner at 3 o'clock in the morning and it's pitch black.
Well,
The last thing you want to do.
It looks so real.
Exactly. So I was like, okay, let's go and do some Reiki and prepare myself for this investigation. About 2:30 in the afternoon, a really dark, grey, rainy day, walking through the castle, I get to the Kenilworth bedroom, which is at the end of a long corridor. And there's a sign at the end of the bed. And it says, Kenilworth bedroom is believed to be the most haunted room in Warwick Castle. During the late Victorian period, the Dowager Countess and Daisy, Countess of Warwick, held seances with the infamous occultist Aleister Crowley in this room to summon ghosts. And at the bottom of the plaque, it said, raising a girl from the dead. According to tradition, Anne the Fourth Countess of Warwick and renowned South African spiritualist Archdeacon Coley raised a young girl from the dead on the bed in this room. And I was like, oh my God, I'm in. I'm South African. This is where I am meant to be. This is awesome. I thought about what we would do for the investigation, and I thought it'd be a really cool idea to recreate the seances in that particular room with automatic writing, with Ouija board sessions, and see what information each group got.
And a dead girl. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Well, I'm standing in this room kind of daydreaming about what I'm going to do for the investigation, and I decide I'm going to snap a photograph of this plaque, really useful information. And as I'm bending down and I'm taking a photo of this plaque that's situated at the end of the bed, I feel this male walk up to me, and I just genuinely thought it was another guy that was walking through the castle, and he's broad day, you know. There's bound to be other tourists around. And so I kind of went, oh, sorry, excuse me. And I moved out of the way so that he could read the sign, and there was no one there. So I was like, that's a bit strange. This is really weird. I snapped another photograph of the sign, and I left. I got home, and I was showing a friend of mine all the photos of the castle. I was like, I'm so excited about this investigation. And as we're going through the photograph, she goes, who's that? In the reflection of the plaque, in the reflection of the glass, in the window behind me is a full-bodied apparition. I know there was no one else in that room. There were two entrances. One was a long passageway with no other doorways, so I would have seen if anyone had walked down that way. And the other one was in front of me. I was looking at it. So I contacted the castle and I said to him, could you please check your CCTV cameras? Because I'm pretty sure there's no wax figure in that room. And they were like, yeah, no, there isn't. So they checked their camera. They're like, yeah, we see you taking photos. You look around, you look very uncomfortable. You snap another photograph and you leave. And I said to them, I was like, there's no one behind me. No one in the window. No one at all. And they're like, no, you're alone. So I sent them the photograph and they couldn't explain it. It became known as the Ghost of Warwick Castle. The photo made international headlines.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was that clear. So if you Google the Ghost of Warwick Castle and MJ Dickson, you should actually be able to bring up a photograph of the plaque and you'll see the figure in the window.
That's cool.
The story continues.
Oh, okay then.
The following year, I decided to host the entire Sage ParaCon at Warwick Castle. We again decided to do Ouija board sessions in that particular room. And I was hoping to write down all the information so that we could verify it with the castle historian. I put Robert Murch, the director of the Talking Board Historical Society, in that room to host the groups. Each group came through and we got a little bit more information. And at the end of the night, we sat down. And the story that we kind of got from all of these Ouija board sessions was that there was a servant in the castle who had stolen something, some sort of a treasure, had hidden it somewhere else in the castle, and that there was a particular person that was known for making a lot of noise. His name was Edward J. One of the other groups got the name Jameson, another group got the name Sarah, and another group got the name Richard. I went to the castle and I gave this information to the historian, and I was super excited to connect this to any history, and they went, no, none of it fits. So I was really disappointed. 2 years later, I'm watching TV. I get this weird feeling like, you need to watch the news. Put the 10 o'clock news on, and it's a story about the county records office that had received a box of records from Warwick Castle, and in it were 2 wax-sealed envelopes. When they cracked them open, they were the original automatic writing transcripts from Aleister Crowley and Anne, the 4th Countess of Warwick.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
In the transcripts, it talks about a ghost called Edward Jameson, a servant who stole something in the castle and hid it somewhere else, but he was murdered. The names Sarah Kitchener and Richard Lee, also in their transcripts. Over 100 years later, we got the exact same information through the Ouija board that Aleister Crowley and the 4th Countess of Warwick received during their automatic writing sessions in the same room.
Wow.
Wild.
I'm looking at this image, and it's crazy. Like, what the F? Who do you think this is then?
To me, it sort of looks like a tall male figure, maybe holding a pipe in front of his mouth, because it looks sort of wispy and smoky at that point. And if you compare it to an image of young Aleister Crowley, who used to smoke a pipe, it kind of looks very similar.
Interesting.
So, I mean, if you spent your whole life trying to communicate with the afterlife, in this particular room, particularly this room, you know, this was his stomping grounds. Crowley was born in Royal Leamington Spa, which is 9 or 10 miles away from Warwick. So that was his stomping ground. He would have investigated or done these seances there numerous occasions. So if you had a ghost hunter in that room trying to communicate with the afterlife, wouldn't you show yourself?
Yeah. What is your overall opinion on him? Because, I mean, I've always only heard very dark and creepy, more negative ideas connected with him, because he played around with all sorts of unusual magic ideas.
He definitely did. He was very much into sex magic and orgies and God knows what else. He did have some great ideas when it came to the paranormal side of things and how to conjure and speak to the afterlife. Not malicious, malevolent spirits, you know, benevolent spirits as well. Just creating this connection to the afterlife. I mean, some of his research was really interesting. I don't think it was all negative. I think he just thrived on being known as the world's most infamous occultist. You know? Yeah.
And it could just be one of those things that he was an oddball, let's say, you know, compared to mainstream society back in this era. So, of course, as time goes by, he's going to get even more lambasted or shown in a negative light.
Exactly. I mean, he was super eclectic. He was super out there, and he didn't apologize for anything. I mean, you know, Thelema, the very thing is do what thou willst.
Yeah.
That's it. It's like, do whatever the hell you want. Go for it. Through society.
Kind of reminding me that it's been a long time since I looked into this, but he was buried, or his ashes were interred in New Jersey at some like hidden location.
I was going to say, I don't think it's publicly known.
No, I don't think it is, but I think it's findable if you ask the right people.
Pretty sure he was buried on a Donald Trump golf course.
Road trip.
Yes.
What are you doing today? Looking for Crowley's ashes? Like, this doesn't make for an episode of Supernatural at all.
Oh, I was thinking a documentary, a full, or it could be like a 90s era indie comedy. Looking for Al's ashes. Yeah.
I'm in.
Nice. Well, lastly, since this is the kickoff and this will air in October, I'm always fascinated by the state of Halloween around the world. It's a pagan tradition that America has really latched onto, and it is represented in different cultures in different ways and in varying magnitudes. And it is something that, because of the proliferation of technology, more cultures are getting exposed to it. I know England is so all about Christmas. I'm sure trees are already up over there. But I'm curious, one, are you seeing Halloween, the idea of Halloween growing in England? And then 2, what was it like in South Africa, in Zimbabwe or South Africa itself?
Non-existent in Zimbabwe and South Africa.
Kind of assumed.
Non-existent. I had never had the opportunity to celebrate Halloween until I came to England, and I was super excited. I was like, oh my gosh, I finally get to do it. It's a pagan holiday. Woo!
How old were you?
Oh, when I moved to England, I was 23.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I celebrated over here, but it's not really a big thing, as in the pumpkins and all of that. We're starting to see it more now. We don't really have trick-or-treating all that much. Here it is more still the pagan roots. It's still the Samhain celebrations. It's still, I mean, I still do a Samhain ritual every year. You still have that side of it. I mean, Ireland is one of the biggest Samhain celebrations in the world. It's amazing. And they do Halloween parades and that, but it's more based on the Druid and pagan side. Nowadays, as I say, we are starting to see a bit of an increase of it. I live in the tiniest little town. The entire main street, the high street, there's one street of shops. That's it. It's a mile long. I'm in between fields of sheep. But we are starting to see the town itself be more accepting to the idea of Halloween. So I was actually asked by our town council if I would be in charge of Halloween celebrations.
Oh my
cool.
Yes. So I am the queen of Halloween in our town. And our house wins best Halloween house every year.
Well, yeah. I mean, the expectations got to be super high. I mean, if you come in second, that's a disappointment.
I mean, when I first moved here, people would literally cross the road to avoid speaking to me. They were like, oh my God, there goes that ghost girl. And now it's like, oh, hey, MJ, how are the spooks doing?
Nice.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm in charge of Halloween in our town, so...
I kind of wish America would adopt some more of the pagan and Druidic ways because it is a little too commercialized and people running around like Iron Man. And it's like, okay, well, this isn't really how it started, but I get it.
You see, now with the paranormal and with all things Halloween, we just need a perfect blend of the two. We need to make a proper mashup of the States and the UK, and it would just be perfect. It would be such a great balance.
I agree. And it's probably spookier.
True.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, getting away from just sexy Freddy Krueger outfits.
I mean, my Chucky outfit's not that bad.
Nice.
Oh,
well, see, that's horror. Well, I guess, sexy Freddy's horror too. But yeah, Iron Man. That's not. You got to be scary. You got to embrace the fact that this is an opportunity for us to feel afraid and celebrate. That's an emotion that that's part of humanity. It's part of being alive.
Now, I think this is a perfect episode to launch us into autumn at the very least, much less, autumn means, at least in our little society here, that Halloween is right around the corner. And I will probably be watching The Legend of Sleepy Hollow within the next week and a half.
Great.
That's how I launched my little Halloween season, listening to Bing Crosby sing about Ichabod Crane. But thank you so much, MJ, for doing this. This was awesome. Probably one of the best fantastic stories we've had.
Oh my gosh. Thank you guys so much. It's such an honor to be on the show, and I really appreciate it. I've added you to my Spotify, so loving the episodes, by the way.
Thank you.
We're going to definitely have to have you on again, and hopefully we can lure you to the Chicago or Madison area one of these days, and we'll, just have some fun in some weird, no trespassing landscape where we're not supposed to be.
I'm in, and I'll bring Cards Against the Paranormal for that as well.
Nice.
Paranormal Insanities game.
I'm definitely can we get that at the Sage website?
You can indeed.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna look it up. Thanks again, Scott Marcus. Awesome as always, like I always say. And of course, happy Halloween. If you hear of any fantastic stories, hit us up, let us know, and you may be inducted into the Fantastic Story Society.